Greetings, fellow Bible readers. Welcome to our special video on the Tabernacle. This week in our readings for Exodus, we've been reading an awful lot about the construction of that tabernacle, as well as the furnishings that went inside of it, and the garments that the priests wore who ministered inside of the tabernacle. For those reasons, I thought that it would be beneficial to take a look at not necessarily what those items all specifically looked like, but at least what an artist thought they might look like to help you visualize them. So the first thing I'd like to put in front of you is a picture of the tabernacle, or at least as I said, an artist's rendition of what that may have looked like. You'll notice the white curtains around the outside courtyard. Then we've got the altar for burnt offerings there, the basin for washing for the priests. Then the building back here, this was the tabernacle proper, divided into two parts. The front part was the holy place, where the golden lampstand, the table for the showbread, and the golden altar of incense were located. And then in the back part of that was a separate room, and there's kind of a cutaway there so you can see past the curtain. And inside of that most holy place was the Ark of the Covenant. So hopefully that picture gives you a little bit of a sense of what that tabernacle may have looked like. One of the things to think about is the scale of the tabernacle, the size of this worship facility. The width of the courtyard was only 75 feet, and the length was 150 feet. To give you a sense of how big that is in terms of something you might be familiar with, the average size for a football field is 300 feet long and roughly 150 feet wide. What that means is that you could fit 4 tabernacles on a standard American football field. So that gives you maybe a little bit of a sense of how big of an area this courtyard contained. Then down here in the corner, there's a picture of one of the priests in the priestly garments, and you can see what that high priest garment would have looked like, at least an artist's idea of it, with the different colors in the embroidery. There's the golden breastplate there with the different gemstones for the tribes of Israel. You can see how it's kind of fastened with golden chains at its corners, and then there's the special headdress. So a little bit of a sense of what that garment may have looked like that the high priest wore. Then on the following page, we do get a little bit of a closer look at that tabernacle with the holy place and the most holy place. That most holy place, by the way, that's only a room that is 15 feet by 15 feet, so not an exceptionally large room for the Ark of the Covenant. And so just a little bit of a sense there. And what this is trying to show you right up here is that there were different layers of things that were placed over the tabernacle to make that tent. Then finally, on the last page here, we have pictures of the furnishings that went inside the tabernacle. Over here, we have the bronze altar for sacrifice. That bronze altar for sacrifice was about 7.5 feet by 7.5 feet and roughly 4 feet tall. So a good-sized altar for all of the animals that would have to be sacrificed on it. Next to that, we've got the bronze basin for washing. And that is probably the least well-described item out of all of these furnishings. So kind of the most speculation as far as the size and the looks. Then the next 3 items are the golden incense altar and the golden lampstand and the golden table for the showbread. Those were the 3 items that went in the holy place where the priest did his work. And then the last item is the Ark of the Covenant, which was in that most holy place where no one was allowed to go except for the high priest once a year. But we'll get into that when we read about the Day of Atonement. So those are just some pictures to hopefully give you a little bit more of a sense of what you've been reading about and what those things may have appeared like. One thing to really note about that tabernacle is the divisions, the barriers in the tabernacle. There was the outer curtain. There was the tabernacle itself that was set off from that courtyard. There was the most holy place. All of those things were to drive home the barriers between sinful people and God, who was represented by that Ark of the Covenant at the heart of the tabernacle. And that you could only get so close to God depending on whether you were a clean and holy person or not. And so driving home, you need something that's going to be able to go between you and God. That's what those priests did, and that's what those offerings were all about, to show that without the shedding of blood, your sins cannot be taken away and you cannot draw near to God. And so very key concept that God was driving home that would ultimately be fulfilled in Jesus, that we could not draw near to God until Jesus shed his blood and entered for us to speak on our behalf with God to make things right between us. That's all for this video. We'll see you next week.